Let's go to our next question from Michael Keating.
Michael Keating from Keating Media. My questions to both gentlemen. Professor Mark Dussendorf of the University of New South Wales has said that radical cuts to emissions will be needed if we were to try and meet the 2-degree reduction target of the Paris Agreement, even if we had 100% renewable energy. What will this mean for the agricultural sector if we try and meet that target?
Minister, to you first.
Well, look, agriculture accounts for about 13% of emissions, and what Labor's saying is they want to cut emissions by 45% across the board. They're trying to tell us that we're exempt. Well, nationalised vegetation management laws do not mean that, because it means that you are taking carbon abatement out of farmers who have to lock up their land, the productivity of their land, and what it means is they don't make as much money. But the money they're going to make, they're going to put in their pocket. They're not going to give you the carbon abatement. You've got to go into one of their schemes. This isn't an opt-in scheme, the nationalised vegetation management laws. This is an arbitrary law that's going to impose their will on you without paying for it. That's the reality. And the fact they haven't even modelled it to know how much carbon they'll abate from this, how much money they're going to take out of the farmer's pocket and put in theirs, shows they're not ready for government. They haven't done the sums. They might need another 3 years to go and do them in opposition. This is the dangerous thing about climate policy. You've got to make sure you're prepared to do the sums. You've got to be honest with the Australian people about the costs. We've made a commitment to meet our international targets. We're not running away from that. But you've got to do that in a calm and sensible way so that farmers can turn their pumps on. And you know what? People can turn their air conditioners on. That's a responsible thing to do for government. It's great to have an ideological view. We all do. We all want a cleaner environment. We all need to do our bit. But let me tell you, you've got to come up with the numbers. If you want to be the alternative government, if you want to say to the Australian people, trust us, you've got to be able to prove it. Prove it with fact. If you can't prove it with fact, you're not ready to govern.
Joel Fitzgibbon.
Well, that was a lot of rubbish, David. He obviously doesn't understand the policy, or he just can't help but fall back into the political spin. Imagine a farmer struggling in drought who accepts an invitation from an investor to plant pines on his land. They'll make an environmental contribution to his land, by the way, but it'll give him a revenue source. It's a good resilience to drought. It's sort of like an off-farm income. He might be able to improve the carbon content in his or her soil. We'll give the baselines for that. We'll give the methodology so they can improve the health of their soil, improving the carbon content, and then improving the soil moisture. If we can baseline where he or she started from, he or she can earn income from the carbon market. That's what we're about, giving them revenue opportunities. Now, people want us to take serious action on climate change, and our 45% target is more than reasonable. In fact, it's below the international benchmark. Now, people in this room, the NFF, Meat and Livestock Australia, together have a commitment to be carbon neutral by 2030. That's more ambitious than our policy. And we're about to give, if we're elected, MLA $2 million to help them further progress the research they need to get there, because, of course, the biggest part of the emissions come from the red meat sector. And if we can improve the outcome of the red meat sector, it'll be the easiest path to reaching our ambition. So people want us to take action. Taking action will be a good thing for farmers, both on the mitigation and adaptation side. It will improve their productivity on farm, and potentially, if they're interested, they can secure new revenues. Now, but he has a policy. Richard Colbeck supports me, by the way, he's junior minister. He has a policy that only allows farmers to plant trees where there's not enough rain to grow them. Not enough rain to grow them. We're going to remove that so-called water rule so that they can earn income. Richard Colbeck supports me. David Littleproud does not.
The problem we've got, David, is if it's so important, as Giles just quite clearly articulates, so passionate about, give us the number. Give us the number. What have you done the work?
Let me ask this
What
question.
have you been doing? You're talking about what we've done for 6 years. What have you been doing, mate?
Okay, let me ask
Where's
this
your
question.
numbers?
Joel Fitzgibbon,
Where's your methodology?
Carbon farming, how much emissions reduction or abatement do you want to achieve through carbon farming?
Well, how long's a piece of string? As much as is possible. No, but well, the MLA and the National Farmers Federation haven't been asked to cost their aspiration. It's impossible to measure. But the farmers aren't in the safeguard mechanism. They're carved out of the system. The only thing they face are opportunities to earn revenue in the carbon economy.
Well,
Two different mechanisms.
Okay,
David,
Minister, I could ask you the same question because under the government's Climate Solutions Fund, you're using taxpayers' money for the same thing. So how much emissions abatement do you want to achieve through carbon
we've costed it, David. We've said we're going to put an extra $2 billion into this.
How much for carbon?
You costed what you're putting in of taxpayers' money.
Exactly, and that's why it's a blunt instrument. Carbon farming at the moment is a blunt instrument. In fact, it has unintended consequences, David. Even in my own electorate, what's happening is that investors are coming in, some of them foreign, simply coming in and buying large tracts of land that have low capital value, making it as a passive income stream, and effectively taking families out of these communities and not managing it. That's why it's a blunt, simple system. I want to make it sophisticated. I want to trust Australian farmers to do the stewardship of their land, and I want to reward them. I want to reward them with a premium.
You are using taxpayers' money for the same carbon farming.
I want to use both. You're not understanding that.
I'm just asking how much emissions abatement, this is the point you've demanded an answer from, how much emissions abatement do you want to achieve?
So we've said that we want to get to 26 to 28%. That's what we've said.
Through carbon farming, it's the point you're making against Joel Fitzgibbon.
So that's why we're saying that we want to have a far more sophisticated instrument than carbon farming.
So you don't have a number?
No, because I'm doing the methodology on that now to have a far more streamlined thing, not just goes for carbon, but biodiversity. Think about the improvement of the environment, David. That is what we want to reward our farmers for, is not just a simple instrument of carbon abatement, but to pay a premium for the improvement of the biodiversity of shelter belts, riverways, gullies. We have more biodiversity.
So you'll come back to us after the election with that number.
We've started $34 million and a certification scheme that will prove to the Prime Minister of the Environment that we need to see that the Climate Solutions Fund of that $2 billion. We've costed ours. These guys haven't given the cost. They haven't said how much they'll save. They haven't done anything. Okay. They said they're ready and this is the most important issue, but they can't tell us what it's going to cost.